I think this really breaks down to what we saw in the Supreme Court today, the long term and the short term. We'll get to the short term in a second, but the long term, Mick, essentially are those questions that were laid out by the Trump team, and then, or by the Trump attorney, and then laid out by Jack Smith's the attorney who represented Jack Smith. So what about this? Essentially this idea of when and if a president can be imprisoned.
I mean, they're great questions, which you would expect from an argument before the United States Supreme Court. In fact, if you can't get good questions and good debate there, you're just not going to have any. My guess is, and it's an educated guess, is that the court is going to be trying to find a way to come to some sort of unanimity. And it may come down like this, that anything the president does while he's in office, he would be immune from prosecution for. But anything he does that's either outside the scope of that office or after he's in office, he is not immune for. A president cannot.
Isn't that total immunity, essentially?
A president cannot be totally immune forever for everything. You just can't. I mean, because the question then becomes, okay, what if you kill somebody 10 years after you leave office? Does that mean you're immune from that? That can't be the result here. So my guess is, as we mentioned, I don't know, 6 months ago, that we thought, remember the case about Trump being on the ballot in Colorado?
9-0, right?
We said, wouldn't it be nice if there'd be a 9-0 ruling in favor of Donald Trump there and a 9-0 ruling against Donald Trump here to sort of establish the bipartisanship or the nonpartisanship of the court, and I think that's what they're trying to get to.
What'd you make of what we heard from the High Court today?
I think that, yeah, look, I agree with you. I think it's got to be a 9-0 decision, right? You don't want to have this be a more divisive thing coming out of the Supreme Court. I agree with Mick. There are limits to presidential immunity. He cannot be ruled totally immune, and quite frankly, nobody wants that, and we have a lot of strict constructionists on the court who, have to look back to the founders, and we know how the founders felt about dictators and monarchs, and they're not going to create one now through their ruling. So there's going to have to be, it's going to get punted back to another court. There will be a delay. They're going to have to say, should the president have been immune in this situation? I think the answer to that is a resounding no. Okay. And I think, though, that it's going to take some time to get to that, and it's going to get way past the election.
All right, May Mailman, come on in, former Trump White House attorney, friend of the show as well. May, good to see you as always. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. May's also the director of the Independent Women's Law Center. Okay, so you heard some of those questions that were outlined today. Well, would you have gone after Obama? Would you have gone after Bush? Can you go after Biden in the future? Or why didn't why did Nixon need to cover up his crimes? What did you make of the arguments, and where do you think the justices are moving?
So I don't see a 9-0 decision, actually. I see this much more as a 5-4, and I do think that the justices are going to cut back on what the D.C. Circuit said. So the D.C. Circuit basically said that presidents can be prosecuted for their official acts if they violate the law. And the Trump attorneys said, both a consequentialist argument, like that's not going to end well, but then also pointed to a lot of separation of powers concerns. And the thing is that Jack Smith's attorney actually agreed with some of those separation of powers concerns. He just had a different line, but I don't think that he had a very clear line. So there's going to be some sort of line drawing exercise. And because the D.C. Circuit failed to do a good job, I think this does get punted back to figure out where that line is.
Okay, so if this gets punted back, right, the key phrase there is punted, which means that this just goes on and on and on, and the court might not decide until July, the High Court might not decide until July. Is that and that's really the short term, which I'm going to get to next, but is that sort of the timeline that we're looking at here?
There did not seem to be a need for speed coming out of the court. Nobody indicated that this needed to be rapidly decided. So maybe it won't be one of the last decisions, which, as you noted, is a July timeframe. They might be sooner than that. But either way, because this goes back and you're going to have to parse whether giving a speech, is that as a candidate or is that as president? Is that core official duties? Is that not core official duties? Because you're going to have to parse everything that he did. Even if it gets punted back sometime soon, it's still going to take a long time to figure out. And because delay is the name of the game here, I do think that this is a win for Trump.
Thank you for watching. And make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.